It's the Movie Crypt.
And welcome to another edition of the Movie Crypt. I'm Adam Green.
I'm Joe Lynch.
We are recording this episode on Thursday, July 8th, which means that this is going to run the Monday of the week of Slumber Party Massacre.
Man, wow, took a while to get to that one.
For those of you who are part of the Slumber Party Massacre tier on our Patreon, that means this coming Friday is Slumber Party Massacre. And unless something changed, well, it's a sad reason why we picked this title.
Bittersweet, if you will. Not to say that we're using this as an excuse. We probably would have gotten to this film at one point or another. It is very sad that we lost the director of this film.
Yes.
But at the same time, when you have directors like Richard Donner, so already as you're listening to this, you're like, oh, what's it going to be? Scrooge, conspiracy theory, the toy? No, not quite.
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon 1. The first Lethal Weapon, and not Loaded Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon. We should really fuck with everybody and just do Loaded Weapon 1. That would really fuck with everybody.
Well, we've already done The Goonies before. We've done a commentary to The Goonies. We did that live reading of an early draft of The Goonies during Yorkie-thon. So we're going to do Lethal Weapon in honor of Richard Donner, who at the time we're recording this passed away 2 days ago.
In honor of Donner. Oh, my God. Boom.
But look, the man was 91 years old. He lived a very, very full, wonderful life. But it is, when you lose somebody of that caliber.
That impacted so many people's lives.
All I kept hearing that whole day was John Williams' score for Superman. And then realizing at some point we're going to lose John Williams, and there's going to be a day that sadly that we're alive and Steven Spielberg isn't anymore. Like maybe people still feel that way who are like 8 years old right now watching people's films. Maybe the people that we grew up who got us into this, who got us believing in the magic, just such titans. And
Richard Donner made people believe that someone could fly.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking about. It's the trailer saying you will believe a man can fly, and all of the technology and the character of Superman and stuff aside, just Richard Donner as a filmmaker, he did make people believe someone could fly. That was just the beginning of it.
Most of the movies that he did before the 80s would have been enough to fill a hell of a filmography. And then there's a whole generation of people who grew up with him because of The Toy and Goonies and Scrooged and obviously the Lethal Weapon series. Like, he's been in people's lives for almost 4 to 5 generations before he stopped even making movies.
Yeah.
And he's impacted so many people. So this Friday, when we talk about Lethal Weapon, it's obviously we have nothing to do with Lethal Weapon at all. So we'll be talking about that film specifically in fits and spurts, but I also feel like there's a lot that we'll be getting off of our chest in terms of how much this man as a filmmaker impacted our lives.
Yes, and now is a good time, since we're talking so heavily about a Slumber Party Massacre, to mention that, because I know there's all kinds of new people who have found the podcast because of our free live weekend. We had a lot of people sign up for Patreon because of that. Thank you so much for being there. But yeah, one of the tiers is Slumber Party Massacre. So it's a live stream the last Friday night of every month. There's, of course, a rebroadcast that stays up for an entire month if you can't catch it live. But it's us on camera watching a movie with all of you guys and doing a commentary for it. Now, we used to do commentaries every now and then as episodes. There used to be a commentary tier of Patreon. A lot of people have heard our commentaries for 3 of the Friday the 13th films in that last box set, but we've actually done almost every Friday the 13th film at this point. I think there's only 3 left. One Goes to Hell, and what's the other one we're missing? Whatever the other one is.
I'm trying to think.
3? We would have done 3
No,
by
we
now.
did 3 because we did it with Zerner.
Well, that's right. Larry Zerner's on that one. Whatever. We'll figure that out at some point. But yeah, so the commentaries are now part of Slumber Party Massacre. And man, is it fun. And last month, we did something special where instead of watching a movie, we actually streamed a whole bunch of your early music videos.
That was a blast.
And talked about those. And in a couple months, we're going to do the same thing with my early stuff.
It won't be as much fun.
It's going to be 100 times more fun, because I'm going to go back to, I'm going to try to find the most embarrassing things I can find. Like,
Wow.
All your stuff was not that old, and it's awesome. And so I thought you were going to be showing stuff where it was like, oh man, this is like...
that's the problem, is that I couldn't get home to Long Island. I have all that
That's true,
shit.
that's true.
So it was a little hard to get all the VHS tapes and transfer them over. You had the benefit of being able to bring some of that stuff back, right?
Well, I shouldn't... You know what? I should check first. I think I have all that stuff. But I clearly remember when my parents first moved to Vegas. This was, I don't know how long ago now. Now they live in Connecticut. But I remember my mom handing me a box just filled with VHS tapes. And she's like, this is all your crap. And some of it is crap. So I can't wait to find it. I'm going to show the very first music video I ever did for communications class when I was 15. Everyone did. I get by with a little help from my friends. That was the assignment. So it was just learning how to edit.
Yeah.
So everybody had just shots of their friends dancing and being happy. And then I did fucking Master of Puppets and this 9-minute opus with fucking maggots on his arms and drug deals gone bad and
oh my God,
Scott Barnes crawling through a cemetery. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. Anyway, but Summer Party Massacre is happening this Friday, and if you haven't yet checked out our other tiers on Patreon, please do, especially Movie Crypt Live, second Sunday of every month, where we do a live episode, and of course the 2-hour pre-shows, which, let's see, this past one was Arwen's new metal pre-show, 2 hours of new metal, which I hope was a big hit. It's coming up this Sunday at the time that we're recording this. But next month is a Twisted Sister pre-show, and I am fucking
I can't
psyched.
wait.
I'm going MJ with it because, like, I have to show some of the videos. I got to show the PRMRC thing. I've got to show this Pee-wee's
better
Big
tell
Adventure.
D so that he can he can listen in.
Well, maybe Dee's going to make an appearance on it. You
Oh,
never
really?
know. You never know. So Dee's new album is out now,
Which is great.
Leave a Scar. Definitely check that out. It is fucking awesome. I loved it on his Scary Sleepover. He was like, no more metal. No more headbanging.
Yeah.
And now he's put out the 2 heaviest things he's ever... He does a song with George from Cannibal Corpse on this new record. Yeah. Corpse
I only heard the
Grinder.
first couple singles.
Dude, it's so good. So good. So anyway, we're here today, though. We're gathered here today to talk with Chad Farron. No relation to Bobby McFerrin. But Joe goes back, 20 years?
I love how that's the connection that you had with, like, you just put the Mick on there and then he'll totally be related to Bobby McFerrin. So don't worry, be happy. Because Chad Farron is neither of those. No, I've known Chad for 20 years now. It's been a minute since we kind of hung out. And so the first time that he walked in was almost 10 years.
Be happy.
Are you done?
Okay, yeah, I'm
Chad's
done.
listening to this right now going, little respect. Jesus, here's my intro. No, I've known Chad for 20 years. We roughed it in the trenches of Trauma. We hung out a lot when I first moved out to LA, and then we kind of, just the way it goes. He did his thing, I did mine. We would kind of intersect, I guess, if you will, a couple times here and there. But it's been a minute, and then I saw him on my Twitter feed because he had a new movie out called H.P. Lovecraft's The Deep Ones, and I'm like, what better time to bring him on the Movie Crypt and catch up than to promote his new film? So it felt very serendipitous, if you will.
Ooh, that's a good word.
I have a few of those.
Serendipitous. It's the title of our next podcast, the spin-off one, where we're going to do an episode every Tuesday for 8 years.
Serendipity.
Ooh.
Too many words.
Yeah, too many words. I'm out. Pass. Anyway, enjoy our conversation with filmmaker Chad Farron and Arwen. Don't worry. Be happy.
So our next guest is someone that I've known for, over 20 years at this point. We also, not only do we share the same birthday, I don't think you even knew that, but we've first met in the hallowed halls of Trauma Entertainment.
There's halls there?
They're very,
I always
very
thought it was just a
thin.
tent.
They're very thin halls. It depends on which version of Trauma. If you're talking about the Hell's Kitchen version or I think I've never been to the Long Island City one, but regardless, we ended up meeting in LA. You were one of the first people that I ever met in LA. I actually went to the screening, I think it was of one of your first films, Unspeakable, at the Egyptian at the time.
No, that was the Ghouls.
Was that the Ghouls? It was one of those. But still, you still had a screening at the fucking Egyptian,
Yes,
which
yes.
at the time when I got there, I was like, holy fuck, this guy's going to be big time.
And look what happened.
Oh, stop. But he has directed such films as The Ghouls, Unspeakable. One of my favorites of his, Easter Bunny Kill Kill. His latest film, H.P. Lovecraft. See, now you already know it's a sign of quality. H.P. Lovecraft's The Deep Ones, which is now out on video, VOD and digital in Redbox, right next to all your favorite Frank Grillo movies. Please welcome to the Movie Crypt director, writer, actor, editor, producer, caterer, Chad Farron.
Yay! Oh, you got a real Arwen bark. It's been a while.
It's been a while since we've gotten an Arwen bark. You usually have to pipe it in through the edit.
I have to cut it in. Good job.
So that means that you better not fuck up, because Arwen's a big fan. Have you been, buddy?
I've been good.
It's been a long time since we talked.
It has been 11 years.
Wow, you're keeping tabs?
Well, when you contacted me on Twitter, I was like,
oh,
hey,
and then the last DM
when was the last time I saw Joe? I was like, it was at Someone's Knocking was screening at some Dread Central fucking thing, and you were there, and we were chatting up, and then we haven't chatted.
And then you've made like 24 films since.
Something less than that.
All right, 23.
22.
So when we were talking before we started recording, we were talking about how you had just finished shooting The Deep Ones right before COVID.
Yes.
And then got COVID.
Yes, it was great.
Trial by fire, man. Like you dove right the fuck in. You know, how was your COVID experience?
It was great. I suggest everyone just go out and start sucking on handrails and doorknobs and catch it, and just have a good time with it, because that's what I did.
Oh, man. But now, were you at that point? You had just finished the movie, because I feel like that was. I mean, when it first hit, like in that March of last year, and no one knew what the fuck was going to go on. It was going to be, is it 6 weeks? Obviously stretched out to much longer than that. Right. But it's funny, because now we're at the point that I think we even talked about when it first hit, where, man, all these filmmakers are going to be all these screenwriters are going to be getting out their great American script. They're going to get like polishing up that passion project. All the filmmakers who probably had something that was going into post are going to have all the time in the world to just frame fuck every single moment. And in most cases, most people just said, I played video games and binge watched reality shows.
Right.
Really, I think the lucky ones.
I'm not looking at you one bit.
Were the ones who. Well, I kept busy doing other things too, but yeah, I did watch a lot of reality shows. But I think people.
Ice Truckers.
Ice Road Truckers. We were working on our own reality show with that company.
Producers. Because we just wanted from the producers of Ice Truckers on the top
Ice
of our
Road
reality.
Truckers. Ice Road Truckers. Ice Truckers is a completely different thing.
Sorry.
But the people who had kind of just finished shooting, like yourself, who at least could then do post when everybody was locked down, and then especially the people with the huge studio movies where they just kind of waited till things started to open again, and then everyone got to keep saying each weekend the #1 movie in the pandemic, or the #1 this and #1 that, and it was. I loved it. I loved watching that happen. But at least you were done filming when it happened, because if it had been like right when it started or something, God forbid you had already shot a few days and then got shut down. And I think most of our audience understands that when you're talking about something where you don't have unlimited resources, getting shut down for a day can sometimes end the entire project. Like that's it. It's over.
No, I mean, that was the great thing, that it was kind of right before, or if people were getting it, like one of the women on the set had it, one of the actresses, and passed it on to me. But
did she know she had that?
I don't think so. She was just deathly ill and didn't tell anyone she was sick. It was just kind of, you look over.
It's like the first act of the movie where that's that person in the background.
And I'm a germaphobe to begin with, so I really don't touch people and all that kind of shit. And here she is the first day of filming, hugging me, and I'm like, okay, I don't know you. You were cast in a role, and nice to meet you. We'll have a good time. And sitting close to me as we're, it's just like, I didn't even think twice about it.
You're not supposed to dabble with the talent, Chad.
I know.
Come on, man.
I didn't pork her, man.
I still think he had it because he got super sick
Yeah.
right before it and had to go to the emergency room because he couldn't breathe and stuff. Like, it was bad. It was the sickest you've ever been, right?
Definitely.
Wow.
It was so bad that I was taking pictures of him to show other people, look how sick Joe is. Like, obviously,
I don't
didn't know.
remember that part.
I can show you the
You were
picture.
sleeping.
Wait, was that like all those weird flashes I got in my house at like 3 a.m? I'm like, who the fuck is taking my picture?
Yeah.
Now it makes sense.
Well, okay, so if both of you came up through trauma at some point, when did you know, how did you get there? Like, when did you know, like, this is what you wanted to do professionally? You weren't going to do something else. It was this or death.
Well, I guess it was originally. I'm like, oh, I want to be a cop. So I went to school to be a cop because I loved cop movies, cop shows, and Chuck
Wait,
Norris.
you really
and all
did
this
go
shit.
to a police academy?
Well, that would be cool. No, I went to college, community college, studying law enforcement, whatever the fuck prerequisites you had to do. And then I'm like, you know what? Maybe acting is what I want. It's one of those things where I'm like, I just like movies so much. All I do is watch movies that I'm like, but that's such a goal that you didn't even put in your head then, of you could be a director or a writer and all these things. So I switched from whatever things and took a theater class just to say, hey, what's this about? And one of the things was to write a play. And so I wrote up a play. I'm like, hey, this is kind of interesting. And I like, whatever, and acted in it. And I'm like, this is something I really this energized me. 3 people in the class clapping and whatever. I'm like, hey, there's something to this. This is kind of cool.
You thought of something, and then people watched it.
People watched it, and they didn't walk out. They were entertained. They whatever. And I'm like, maybe this is something to really consider. So I had a babysitter as I was a kid named Lori Leahy. Cute girl as a kid. I was 8 years old. She was maybe 12 or whatever it might be.
She sounds cute. Everyone loves Lori Leahy. Are you kidding? Like, yeah.
I know Lori Leahy very well.
Prom queen, homecoming queen.
My mom's like, oh, if you're really serious about, making movies and stuff, she married a movie producer. Why don't I call and see if they could get you some work? I'm like, sure. Here's a kid in Minnesota, 19 years old, whatever it is. And my mom calls up her mom, who called up her in California, and they called back and said, yeah, if he's serious, he can come out and work as a PA on, whatever the fuck it was.
And you worked on some crazy movies as a PA.
You're the reason why every parent tells that story. Like, my mom, when I
it's all Chad's fault.
She's like, you just need to meet somebody and they'll make a call. They'll meet, you got to network.
My friend from the hair salon has a babysitter who's got a friend who also married a producer.
There's that one story where it worked for somebody where they didn't think it would. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever, call.
Right,
Nothing's going to come of this. And then there you are. That's great.
So it was basically, a couple months later, they called back and said, look, we got something starting up in January. It was back-to-back with Michael Rooker, and I was like, okay. I packed up my car, drove all the way through, got here, found an apartment, bought a Thomas guide, and was delivering scripts to, this, that, and the other fucking person. And it was like the most exciting, fun, it's just like a whole new world of coming, some farm kid coming out here and not knowing anyone or anywhere, how to get there, and reading this map, and it's 2 a.m. and you got to go to Mulholland and whatever and drop off.
Or no,
this,
I'm sorry, you mean M3.
Right,
you got to get to that one grid M3.
But that's how scripts were delivered overnight, new pages and stuff.
Yep.
We were the assholes who had to drive them out to people. And
pre-PDFs.
But I love that you're saying, because I was the same way. Like, the first time I had to drive a script to an actor's house at like 3 a.m, there was nothing more exciting.
Yeah.
I thought I was the most important. I might have been like as well delivering the bomb or some shit. Like,
right.
I was on a secret mission. Like, I had the address of some famous person's house. I'm up in Malibu. The person I was with was like, Axl Rose lives there, and like Meatloaf lives there. I thought it was great because I never understand the people who are miserable while they're doing it when they haven't even been doing it that long.
Right.
But they're, I get you're gung ho. You want to be in the director's chair. You want to be, but how do you not love that you're part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're really getting to do something and enjoy it,
Yeah. No, and that's, I think, one of the fucked up things of even experiencing that, because you're so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and everything's so new to you, and then you see all these people around you that are like, they're just so
you don't
miserable.
know where it's coming from.
And you're like, why are they so angry? And none of them seem to like movies.
Yeah,
That's
all, true.
Or
maybe they did, and then it just got beaten out of them.
Maybe.
I get it now. I do get it. That where that frustration comes from and how somebody can become that beaten down. I mean,
sure.
We all have our own stories, but we've also seen far worse happen to other people, and you wonder like how they keep doing. I mean, this is completely different, but I think Scott Derrickson, if you guys go back and listen to his episode, I don't know what number it was, but he like had so many times where something great should have happened and it didn't for some reason. And then Doctor Strange happens, and it's amazing. And then his house fucking burns down. He had just bought the house, and the big fires that we had, I guess, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
And lost everything. And his attitude was, my kids are safe. I'm safe. My wife is safe. It'll be fine. It's just stuff. If I lost my kiss dolls, like, I don't like, but I guess, priorities click into place during tragedy.
Sure.
But we've all seen, it's life. Not just this industry, throughout life, as people get older, a lot of them get bitter. But when you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and you're on a set and like there's a real movie being made, or the first time you get to drive up to a studio gate and they're like, they'll have a drive on for you. And then you get up there, you're like, I'm going to get arrested or something. They're not going to let me in. They're not going to let me in. And then they look at your ID and they hand you the little thing and they're like, go ahead, park there. And you're like, what?
It's like that moment in Detroit Rock City where they're like, welcome.
Yeah.
All slow-mo. You're like, I've made it. Going through the Paramount lot.
It still never gets old for me, though, when I go to a real studio and the gate opens for you and you're like, huh. This is where it ends.
And then they go like, no, you're not that Adam Green. We gave on to the other Adam Green.
Different story.
One of the things that I've always noticed, though, through your oeuvre, if you will, is that you do like the dark shit. Like you do have an appreciation, not just for the genre, but for the extremities.
Right.
Was that always the case? Did you love horror movies when you were a kid, in particular?
Yeah, Twilight Zone is really the main thing that I just remember still to this day being, however old, and watching a little orange Quasar black and white TV and the red plush carpeting in my room just glued to it day and night, watching these old black and Alfred Hitchcock Presents and all these black and white things, and just thinking how great it was back then. Mm-hmm. It's like almost you thought the world really was black and white and everything was simple and whatever. And it was just a world that I was fascinated by. And those dark elements, I think, were part of the thing of, growing up on a farm and seeing things killed and death firsthand is something, I don't know.
Did it desensitize you in a way?
Yeah. So you could see all these things as a kid, and it's just like, oh, that's not so bad as real life. Because when you see something dying for real in your hands or whatever, it's nasty. And in a movie, I don't know. It's just something that, I've always been attracted to, and I like it. And it's one of those things where, it's nice to make, comedy and drama and film noir, or whatever it would be, or a Western would be great. But for me, horror was the thing that's the easiest to make something that someone will want to see, no matter what budget, that's going to get a response, whether it's, a good one or a bad one. But it's like, oh, wow, this has got, such a nasty rape scene that everything else sucks, but it's got this hook that's, going to get it out there. So you're able to overcome your financial, budgetary restrictions by pushing boundaries that get you attention. And for whatever reason, I've had luck at it, where films have gotten into festivals and decent reviews and led to other things, not necessarily where I would have wanted to go at the time. Like you say, The Ghouls, when that played The Egyptian, I got a great review in Variety.
I remember that.
And it was just amazing. I remember rushing out and getting, 20 copies of the old paper Variety.
That's
it's like,
huge,
this is
though.
great.
To get a positive review in print in Variety.
It was great. No, Miramax called me up. They wanted to do the remake rights. Everything was like, I've made it.
I did it.
I was ready. And then that guy got fired or whatever it was, and then and then I'm like, oh no.
Nothing to do with the movie you made or anything you did.
It was just one of those things, but at that moment, which taught me to really appreciate moments. Whether it's a rejection letter from Paramount or whatever it is, it's like, wow, somebody at Paramount fucking looked at this thing. And it could have been someone who loved it. And here's a $1 million film. And those hopes and dreams were in me for the longest time until I finally was like, you know what? Why am I hitching all my hopes and dreams on these things that might happen instead of just doing things that I'm able to do right now? Yeah. If I can go raise 50 grand or 100 grand, write the script around that and go do it.
Are you still able to celebrate the little victories? Because it's something we talk about all the time that we try really hard to do. Like, you had a really good meeting, or a screening went amazingly well.
Sure.
It's so easy to be like, yeah, but these other things. But but both of us are constantly trying, and we're pretty good at doing it for each other.
Yeah.
But we're still not good at doing it for ourselves, because whatever it is, there's always a way to discount it and be like, well, it's not that big of a deal.
Or sabotage yourself in the moment.
Yeah. But you're so used to the other shoe dropping.
Yeah.
But are you still able to
Well,
do
I
that?
think the older you get, the less that lasts. You know, before it would be like you get into a major festival or get a great review from something that means something. That lasted like weeks. Now it'll last a few hours, and then you start thinking, well, it could have been this or it could have been that, and you overthink it instead of kind of just riding that energy a little longer. So I'm trying to say, hey, look, you made it. No one got killed. It got distribution. It's out there. Whether people click with it or not, at least, 2 out of 100 are like, this is the greatest film ever. I can't wait to see his next film. And you appreciate those little things. But I think if you start overthinking about the accomplishments, they get less and less over time. And for me, it's trying to recapture that excitement and that energy. Same thing, bright-eyed on a set, of trying to chase that dragon, if it would be, and get that happiness out of it that you did. And the one thing that I'm still always happy, no matter what, is getting on set.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Editing, I like less and less with each film, but on set is the best for me. Writing it's okay if you know that there's a budget to do it.
Yeah.
Spec writing's a pain in the ass because you're like, maybe it'll click, maybe it won't, maybe I can find the money for it. But, sometimes you just ride with it, and especially with this pandemic crap, you had a lot of free time to write and do things and whatever. So, I just kind of try to just find the happiness with each film and drag it out as long as you can until the next one. And the best thing was shooting the deep ones and then finishing that. It plays festivals, gets a distribution deal, and then roll into shooting another one.
Yeah.
So if you could shoot at least one movie a year, it, for me, would be the ultimate thing. And I don't care if the budget's $50,000, $100,000, or $1 million. It's as long as you're working and having fun doing what you want. And I think that's the goal. Kind of, for me, it's the Corman. I would rather be a Roger Corman kind of thing than a James Gunn kind of thing, because you're able to make whatever you want without a committee. I don't have to answer to anybody. And if a distributor doesn't work for him, then it doesn't work for him. But at least I made something I'm happy with and didn't compromise to the point of losing my voice in it.
Well, it's one of those things too that I feel that we all grew up in the 90s where indie film was huge,
right,
and you could have your babysitter's husband call you up and say, "Come on out." There was there was still a punk rock sensibility to it.
Sure.
It didn't feel so corporatized yet.
Right.
And that you could, work on a Dimension film or something like that and feel like you're part of the prophecy.
Right.
But, and then looking at your other work, there is that, I don't give a fuck attitude, which I found from Unspeakable.
Sure.
That was the thing that I loved the most about it, was it felt dangerous, but in a good way.
Right.
And then you sit there and you look back kind of retroactively and you go like, all right, where do you think this filmmaker will go? You can look at James Gunn and go like, from Romeo and Juliet, did you ever think he'd be doing fucking Guardians of the Galaxy
No.
and Suicide Squad? Absolutely not. No one knew.
Right.
But like Tarantino, I remember talked about this a couple years ago, where he was like, I'm very precious about my filmography. There are some filmmakers who can be precious about it.
Right.
The rest of us are fucking squirrels just trying to find a nut.
Right.
And if you're going to work in this business, either you have to have a lot of side gigs to the point where your dreams and passions almost become the side gig in a way,
Sure.
Which is not, I hasten to say disheartening, but it's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
So, and you're very lucky in that respect, where you have enough of a filmography and you know how to make a budget work, and you know how to make a film on those constraints, where there's some filmmakers who be like, I don't want to put myself in that position, because then I would be compromising this huge vision and scope that I might have. I mean, the fact that you did an H.P. Lovecraft movie. Right. Now, we've seen big budget versions of that. We've also seen directors try to do that, like with Del Toro trying to get In the Mountains of Madness forever, and no one can do it. And then you can see how someone like Stuart Gordon can do, Reanimator, obviously, but later on when he was doing like Castle Freak, or even when he tried to do Shadows over Innsmouth and then turned it into Dagon,
right.
Still great shit, and he knew how to make that work.
Sure.
So, like when you can look back at your filmography at that point and go, I know how to do this, and it's become, I don't want to say like just part of the routine. Right. But like I can watch this new movie and go like, where to put the camera, right. You know how to elicit the response that you need from the actors involved, where the cut points are, and I think that comes with experience.
Sure.
Do you see when you look at your older films now, like The Ghouls or right. Unspeakable, do you see that same filmmaker today?
No, I think there was still that. Unsure of your future, in that you made the film you wanted to make, it got out there, and how it was received was still kind of a mystery. I was still hoping for a reception, a positive one that would lead to other things. Mm-hmm. Now I've kind of given that up, where I'm just solely making films that I want to make and not caring so much on where it goes. It's kind of the fateful energy around it. It's kind of like, you'd be nervous making a film or getting on a set with a new DP and all these things. I don't care about. It's just like I'm like totally in control of letting what happens and accepting those happy accidents and where the film goes. Like, each time I work with a new DP, they're like, okay, can you give me the shot list and all this stuff? I'm like, I don't do any of that shit. It's in the script. Yeah. If there's a shot that I want, the camera crane's down or whatever, we'll try to get that. But it's like, look, we're shooting a fucking film in 10 days. The main point is we got to do 10 to 12 pages a day. Can you handle it? I mean, I know what I got to do, and I know what I got to get, so it cuts into it. Out of all my films, I've never had to do reshoots, never had to do pickup shots, never had to do any of that shit, because
it's never been an option.
It's always just been, I know what's going to work and what we need. We grab it in the amount of time that you have to grab it. It'd be great to get this great move or this great thing, and sometimes you're able to get that. If it's, I thought of it in the script, I'll write in the script and we'll try to get it. But if it ain't working because the DP can't make the move or time conframes, you throw it in the garbage and figure out something else that you can do and get the day done and move.
But that's something that comes with experience, because
yes, totally.
There's nothing. I think every one of us, filmmaking wise, has had that gun to their head when you read the script or you write the script and you go like, oh my God, I have this fucking oneer that is going to just go down in the fucking history books. Right. And then you ultimately get to set, and then that is not going to help you make your day.
Right. But you also gain from experience learning that cool shot that you had in your head when you weren't able to get it and you had to compromise on the day and just do it as a oneer with coverage or a wide with some coverage.
Or just it's called coverage.
The audience is fine with that.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't sit there and go like, I felt like there was a oneer in there.
If you go in there, hey, I'm De Palma, I'm going to do this De Palma, you're going to fucking cry your eyes out because, you don't have 3 weeks to shoot an effects shot or whatever it is, like The Thing. I mean, I remember him doing an interview, long ago on it was on Fear Itself or some kind of thing with Mick Garris interviewing Carpenter and Cronenberg and
that old
American
one,
Werewolf,
right? Landis. It's on the Criterion edition of Videodrome.
Yeah.
And it's old. It's like a round table with all of them back in like the early 80s talking about this shit.
Oh, yeah. There's a picture of that circulates every now and then.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he's saying, it's like we had, a week to shoot this one shot or all these things of these effects things. And I'm like, wow, my God. I don't think even if I had time to do certain things, I would even want to do that. I've gotten into the thing where it's like, I want to get the script done, like deep ones, 2 weeks written, 10 days shot, a month to edit. I mean, because I want it out of my fucking life. I love the film. I love making the film. I love getting it done. But once it's done, I'm done. And I want to be on to the next thing. I don't want to watch it ever again. I want to be done and move on to the next thing. So because I worked as hard as I can, 12, 14 hours a fucking day on this thing, from writing to shooting to editing. I'm done.
So for you, literally the moment that you deliver the film, that's your therapy.
And now it's time for Hollywood Therapy. The doctors are when.
That's right. It's time for everybody's favorite part of the movie crypt. It's time for Hollywood Therapy with Dr. Arwen. This is where the three of us do the best job we possibly can answering your more personal questions on behalf of the good doctor. We would let her answer, but
Woof.
she's a dog.
What was that? That breath?
I was running out of breath. I was just trying to fit it all into one
Wow.
fell swoop. And okay, so our question this week. Okay, so when we started Hollywood Therapy, I assumed this would be the first question that we got. I can't believe it's taken this long for somebody to ask it. Our question comes from Ben, and probably 90% of the rest of the people listening as well. Hello, Dr. Arwen, Adam, Joe, and guest. How does one go about getting funding for a feature? I know that is a loaded question, but so often I hear independent filmmakers say, so we have this great script and we shopped it around to investors. Who are these magic investors? Where does one find them? How did some of your films get funded? If you guys could shed some light on this mysterious corner of the filmmaking process, it would be much appreciated. Thanks for your time. And go. Who wants to take this
man,
one?
I don't know.
This is one of those questions where if there was...
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Every situation is different.
If there was an answer to it, then everyone would be making movies because everyone thinks they can and that they should because they have ideas and they like movies. But that's unfortunately not how it goes. Look, it's everybody. Everyone has different stories for how they found money, whether it was like John Carpenter trying to go to like dentists and doctors.
Yeah, Darren Aronofsky would go door to door, getting $7,500 from all these people to put together Pi.
Yeah,
I like that.
Well, there is no like convention of rich people looking to lose money because that's what you have to be crazy to invest in a movie. You do. For every story you hear about, like Mustafa Akkad striking gold with Halloween, there's thousands and thousands who lost their shirt. It's hard. So okay, from experience, once you've
didn't
had
say anything yet.
once you've had a success, with something, it does get a little bit easier because
you've shown that you've proven yourself as a commodity in a way.
Right, but then you can usually go to distributors that also finance films. So for instance, like with the Hatchet sequels, Dark Sky, MPI, they financed the sequels and distributed them. But it's, they're sequels, so it's easier at that point because the first one had a following. But with the first one, there was Sarah Albert, who was one of the producers on it. She's the one who read the script after my agents had sent it out. Everyone had passed, and she had just produced the Friday the 13th box set, the first one that was parts 1 through 8 with the shitty covers. That wasn't her fault, but she did all the behind the scenes stuff. She produced that stuff, and she was just, after she read it, she's like, I feel like after talking to all those people, I think we could just make this. I think we should do it ourselves. And I'm like, well, yeah, but we need money. How do we get money? I don't know any rich people. And then I met Corey Neal's wife. I was friendly with through other friends, and she mentioned, oh, my husband is a producer, but he hadn't produced anything yet. And he and his partner were like money-raising guys, and they were specifically looking for a horror movie. And they had several of them. So they knew other rich people in France, and they went to like Cannes, and I remember there was a meeting, and one of the investors he needed the script to be read out loud to him. He wouldn't read it himself. And they had to sit there and read it to him. Now imagine any one of your scripts and then like two money-finding guys reading it out loud to somebody. How good is it really going to sound? Right. So the stories are so crazy. But eventually they did meet somebody who had their own commercial business in Kiev, and they were looking to finance a movie as long as it was $1.5 million or less. But then is the hard part where you have to present a financial plan to these people, and they're not gonna make the decision. They're gonna show it to lawyers and people who, usually the good thing or the hard thing about rich people is most people did not get rich by being stupid or making rash decisions, unless you can find a trust fund person who didn't earn it themselves and it's dad's money. So Yeah, but that was sort of how that happened. And Hatchet we were able to show if this becomes a franchise, this is what it could make. And then if it sucks, and at the time, it was straight to video, was the term. And it just gets dumped at Blockbuster. If we only spend this much, you're still likely to get most of your money back. And they, lo and behold, they went for it. But I don't have any other stories of being successful going out and just trying to raise money like that. A lot of people think, well, now that you have a following, just crowdfund things. That is so much harder than people think it is, especially in our genre, because
look at where we are now, where 3 or 4 years ago when crowdfunding just started, it was like gold rush. Right. Everybody was like, crowdfund this, crowdfund that. And I remember us even saying, like, maybe we should hold on anything that we want to put out there. Let's see where this goes. And look where crowdfunding is today. It's not the same beast it was 3 or 4 years ago. I did it once, and it was just for like a web series thing called Scary Sleepover. People kept asking for more, and we'd already done like 28, 29 episodes, and the crew was just doing it for free. And they weren't going to do it anymore, and I couldn't ask them to do it anymore. And all we asked for was $5,000 an episode, right. And however many times we raise $5,000, we'll do an episode. And it was little under 1.2 million people had watched the series. Every week, people asking, "Please do more, please do more," and we were only able to finance four episodes. And a lot of those people were the same people donating multiple times. And still, again, to this day, I get, are you going to add more of the, or like, what happened to that show? Do more of it. It says in the episode, twice during the episode, it would go to a commercial saying, we can't do more unless you help. People do not want, they just want stuff. They don't want to pay for it. And we now live in a time where everything is platform-based and you point and click. And if you even pay for your Netflix account and you're not just using your friends, entertainment does not have the value that it did. Of course, there are still success stories, but it's hard. But to get back to the question, I mean, what about you guys? Like your first thing was a studio movie? That's the thing. Like my first movie was studio through Fox, and then then I took the fucking leap off into the deep end with IndieVest.
So Knights of Badass ended up being a Ponzi scheme, and that was a fucking nightmare.
Chad's looking at me like, you schmuck.
What about you, Chad? What was for your first one?
Well, Unspeakable, I sold my house, took that money, made the film, and, it took 20 years to make that money back, but,
Did you actually saw that money come back to you finally?
Well, a large chunk of it was from a copyright claim in Germany or something. It's a weird thing. It was like 10 years after the film. I was a trauma hater because I'm not getting checks and all this stuff. I'm like, they ripped me.
That's where I look at you and go, schmuck.
Exactly. So, but from that, I learned a lot of things contract-wise and all these other things that kind of pay for things. But a check ended up coming for like $25,000 or something from a Germany copyright thing from the DGA.
Oh, God bless.
And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not in the DGA. I'm not in any union. Why is this check coming to me? And I'm like, what? And it said some copyright infringement in Germany or something like that. And the check was good. And there was another company that made a movie called Unspeakable with Lance Henriksen. They basically bought the title. Even though you can't copyright a title, they ended up they didn't want any shit with their E&O insurance. So they're like, here's $10,000 to sign off that you won't sue us because you're the first film to be called Unspeakable.
Really?
Yes. So
wow. Of all the films that have come out up to that point.
That was the first one.
Weird.
Well, okay, speaking of selling houses though, even with Hatchet having $1.5 million for a budget and being financed, in the end, Will Barrett, my DP and partner in all of this for almost 23 years now, he wound up having to remortgage his house because I can't get into the whole story right now. It would take too long.
First Hatchet?
The first Hatchet, because of what happened with our with post-production, that DI house that fucked everything up and scratched the negatives. And ultimately, we were responsible for this investor's $1.5 million. We can't go to him and say, well, look, it wasn't our fault, but the negatives all got scratched and the color corrections all fucked up and the sound is awful, and it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our fault. It is our fault.
Right.
So Will took his children's college fund and remortgaged his house and put up another $100,000 so we could redo post-production.
Where is this guy?
He did get it back. Right. But very few filmmakers are that responsible. Most people would say, hey man, it wasn't my fault.
Right.
Because it wasn't our fault, but it was still our responsibility. So even when you are financed, shit's going to go wrong. I mean, you've got 420 something episodes of stories like that. But, and Ben, that's why this is such a hard question to answer. But it's like you said, that's the big mystery. It's like you hear people say, and then we went out with the script and it's always like, wait, stop right there. What does that mean? Where did you send it? Like, I know how to get information for agencies.
Went out to my mailbox and put it in there and then went, please have money come my way. It's not how it works.
Yeah, it's just not. But first of all, get an IMDb Pro account. It's whatever it is these days, $10, $12 or something like that. And you'll have every address and phone number in the business right there. And then obviously you still need to have connections at those places. But we've said it before, the screenwriting book I'm always talking about by Skip Press, like that details the process for how to submit your screenplay. But you're going to have to find your own way. And if it's just finding somebody with money, even that isn't enough, because you're going to have to present to them a business plan that shows why this is a smart and sound investment. And the movie being kick-ass, or, never say it's for fans, made by fans. No one ever wants to hear that, especially fans. Nobody wants to hear that.
That old chestnut has been used way too many times at that point,
and burned everyone.
I want to point something out too. Depending on, so Ben obviously has a script.
Did he mention that? He doesn't necessarily say that, but let's just say yes. He's got a script. It's awesome, and he's ready to go.
But there's something to be said about knowing what that script is and what the scope of that script is, because
that's your business plan.
But there's a difference between doing something where, like, all right, maybe Ben has a script where it's a self-contained home invasion thriller that has 4 actors in it, right? As opposed to a globe-spanning pandemic film that's going to have multiple locations, huge explosions, and a part for Frank Grillo. You kind of have to know, where can this script be funded independently?
That's your business plan, though. Your business plan will have a breakdown. It'll have a shooting schedule. It'll have all that stuff. So for Hatchet, we had a 24-day shoot all planned out. Wow. We had my storyboards. The amount of work that we did, and that's why we made Grace, because Paul saw it. He had done all of that work, and most people don't. They either don't know how to, they don't want to do it. It's a lot. It's a lot to do, but. Remember, it's even on the executive level, their job is to say no. It's to find a reason not to do it. Because when you say yes, your money's on the line, your ass is on the line. So don't make it easy for them to say no. You got to show them you would have to be a fool to pass on this opportunity. And I hope none of this is coming off like
you pretentious asshole.
Yeah, but it's not. I'm just being honest. All of us are. It's like we were joking before. I was like, I should jokingly say, oh, there's a website that you go to, and it's people looking to finance movies. .com, yeah. And but it's so hard. I wish there was an answer. I wish there was like a very specific thing. But the best thing you can do, Ben, is listen to all these stories of how other people did it and be inspired to come up with how you're going to do it. Maybe some of what they did will work for you. But it's definitely about meeting people who have access to people with money. Or maybe you have money, or you have a rich uncle who...
Can we have their number?
Yeah, if you do, I need to speak to you ASAP, so please private message me on... I don't accept private messages.
On TikTok. He's on TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
Look from there.
Anything else anyone's got on this one? It's so hard. It's such a hard question.
But again, if you want to do it bad enough...
You'll find a way.
Especially now, it's so easy. You can shoot this shit with a phone. It's like if you really...
Oh, you're not allowed to say that anymore. No, Chad, didn't you hear from Film Twitter? You're not allowed to say that anymore.
I don't even have a fucking cell phone. So this is how back old school I am. I don't stream shit. I don't have any fucking Netflix. I'm watching movies on a goddamn Betamax and Laserdisc. That's how back I am. I do not want to leave that fucking cool, cozy spot that I'm in. I do not like this streaming. I do not like cell phones. I do not like any of this jazz. I'm old. If I could be shooting on 16 millimeter, I'd be doing that. But it's one of those things, and it's the same thing. If you want money and you want to raise money, sell what you got, take that money, and go make the fucking thing. And if you want to find more people to invest in it, ask your friends, ask other, one thing that I found that works really well, and I almost am tempted not to give up the secret, but, this is educational, why not, is basically you find an actor who has a few dollars to invest, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, pitch that out to him. Hey, I've got this great role for you. You invest in this movie. We make it. She says, okay, sure, here's $5,000. Get another actor to put in $5,000, another to put in 10, another to put in 20. Pretty soon you got $100,000 and go make the fucking thing.
And now you have people paying you to work on your movie, even though they're an investor in it. They get a piece of it.
They own a piece of it. They're bound to show up.
Yeah, they're going to take it seriously.
They're invested, and you don't have to worry about their check bouncing because they're the ones who are there to pay the crew, or they paid you already, and you just roll with it.
Have you ever had a situation if that?
Okay, but sorry, right there, Ben. There's a story you might not have heard
advice
before. So that's what I'm talking about. Everyone has different stories for how they were able to wrangle some money together. Also, when you do your business plan, have your dream plan for how to do it right, how to do it where it's your vision to a T. Then also have a backup version that you don't put forward right away, but how you could do this, the compromise version on a budget. Believe me, the original budget for Hatchet was not 1.5. It was a lot more than that. But 1.5 at the time on film, like a real movie, that's what we felt like we could pull it off for in 2003 when we were meeting with people. But this is what I mean. Here, just different stories for how people did it, absorb all of it, and then figure out what your path is. But there is no, this is exactly what you do. And anybody who tells you that, I would be suspicious of that. Sorry, I totally cut you off. But
No, well, just last thing. Have you ever been in a situation like that where you've had an actor that you're giving direction to, which some people see as a position of control?
Sure.
Have you ever had a situation where you've been like, look, we need another one, or you're not really like, you're giving direction.
Right.
And they go, listen, I put money into this. I know what I'm doing. Has that ever happened before?
No, because I try to be as upfront and honest in everything I do with no bullshit and all that stuff, and kind of a Lee Marvin attitude toward things. I mean, it's like, I don't try to be a tough guy or anything like that, but I'm just not, I'm honest. And if the actor, I had a guy, an investor, who said he was an actor. And then he gets on the set and he knew his lines and stuff, but it was very wooden and very stiff, and it was take after take after take and tons of coverage. Because I've learned over the years that there's no fucking amount of me, channeling Meisner or whoever to try to get a fucking performance out of an actor who doesn't have it. You either have it or you don't have it. Yeah. And, there's time. And as an editor myself, I basically know what I need to cut a decent performance out of that person and get it. And I've yet to have someone, maybe it's because I try to be as confident the minute I step on that set or with these meetings with investors as possible. I know every answer to every question they have, whether it be a distribution one or how we're going to do it or a lawyer question or any of this shit, because I've been through it long enough to, be confident in what I'm doing and knowing that, hey, look, this film is going to get finished. It's going to be watchable. It's going to sound good. It's going to look good. And 90% positive it's going to get distribution, and you'll get a fraction, if not all, your money back. And in the last two films, that has been a successful model, and it's worked.
Now go back to one and do it the fuck again.
Now do it again and again and again and again.
And that is Arwen's final word. I didn't know that you went from a farm out west first, working on like studio level type things, and then found your way 3,000 miles back across the country to Troma, of all places. So how did that happen?
Wow, that's a mouthful.
I've heard that before. Sorry.
Well, I was working, at Neo Motion Pictures, making, as a PA, and learning kind of the ins and out of everything. And
Was that Joel Suisson?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And Mike Leahy, and it was an exciting, amazing time, and it's really something that I fondly look back on as something that not only, I guess the one regret that I have is not being more go-getter in the schmoozing department, because it was, as being a shy kid growing up and glued to the TV and all that stuff, and in these other worlds, I was more of an antisocial kind of thing, but thrown into these things. Okay, I got a job to do. Get there with a big smile, excited to be here, do your job, and then you get invited to parties and whatnot, and it's like, I don't want to go. And you're just kind of in your shell, and you go back to being that kid watching the movies and like, I should be there. And they would even say, boy, Chad, if you want to be a director, you really need to come to these things and schmooze with people. But to me, I always saw schmoozing as kind of a fake thing, and I'm like, I don't want to be fake.
I didn't see it leading to anything, like handing business cards to each other and stuff. Like, what does that really do? But it's the people that you do end up like working with that you end up becoming friends with and making real relationships with.
Sure.
Whether you're just the PA or whatever your position is.
Right. So it was one of those things of, working and working and working. And then basically I was like, I'm sick of working. I think I've learned enough. I've got a house back in Minnesota. The market was good. I'm going to sell that house and I'm going to make a movie. Sold the house, took the money, made Unspeakable. And, that to me was the biggest learning adventure of basically how to lose your ass and come in control. I had a DP who was basically taking forever to light a fucking scene.
This is a local DP?
He was an English DP, but he'd lived out here like 20 years. Great guy, very talented. But it was one thing where like we're falling behind and we're falling behind and we're falling behind. It's like
you had to tell Roger Deakins, fucking hurry the fuck up.
Because nobody cares when it comes down to it. As long as it's in focus, that's all that matters. It's a fucking $50,000 film. Let's fucking move, man. And it was coming to blows with that, with people that you're like, here's an artistic person. I'm artistic. Why am I fighting with this guy to get a fucking movie done? And it was just one of those things of finally, getting it done and then learning those things on set that I will never let a DP run the show of, if it's taken too long, you're fucking fired. Here's your replacement waiting in the wings, whether it's an actor, a gaffer, a fucking sound man. Have backups for all of these people. And I learned that, immediately because I'm like, look, man, this is my fucking house money and we're not getting this film done and it's costing more money and it's losing quality just because someone wants it to look like the fucking Godfather when 90% of the audience doesn't
Funny,
give
when
a
I watched
flying
Unspeakable,
fuck
I
about
went,
it.
oh, that's very Gordon Willis-esque.
Right.
So he did his job, I guess.
So it was one of those things of, again, learning on the job, because when I was making those movies for Neo Motion Pictures and Mike Leahy and Joel and all this stuff, that's a whole different thing than a low-budget fucking movie or a Troma movie, because everyone's just so... it's almost like everyone's wearing their suit and tie and they're doing their job and it's on time and it's union rules and all this shit. Then when you make it yourself for no money, it's a whole different ball game. Yeah. And you sometimes get crew members who are from those bigger things thinking that it should be like this, and then, bringing bad energy because it's so unprofessional that you want to shoot 15 hours or you want to, not skip a lunch break or whatever it fucking is. But you're like, look, we've got fucking 4 more hours to be in this location and 15 pages to do. So let's fucking move it. And it's just, for me, it was finding those people, the right ones that work with you, whether it be an actor or a crew member, and is clicking with you. Because if you find one bad apple, you're going to have a nightmare on your hands. But if you're prepared to shit can them and replace them with someone else, it'll be a smooth sailing ship.
And talk about a trial by fire, though, where it's your money on the line. And I think when you're talking about other positions, a lot of times it's, okay, yeah, well, it is going. We are going to need more money to shoot more hours, but that's not my problem.
Right. That's
production's problem. Man, when you're the director, I've seen plenty of directors who don't care about that. They're like, no, I need more time, so you figure that out. But we have to get this shot. Sometimes I wish I could be more like that and not so willing to. But it's like at the end of the day, I think because everything I've done has been through my shingle. It's like you can't get a reputation of going over budget. And if you told the financier it's this much, that's all you're getting. You can't keep going back and saying, oh, but there was a storm, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. But when it's your house, literally, that you have on the line, damn.
To hear the rest of this episode, go to patreon.com/themoviecrypt. For only $1 a month, you'll get every new episode every Monday, downloaded right to your podcast app of choice.